Hi, everyone. Welcome to Dear BAMf, the show for PR and marketing pros like you, hosted by Beck Bamberger of BAM. BAM is a communications agency that believes stories move the world. We move stories forward for technology-driven brands that challenge, change, and create entire industries. Today, on the Dear BAMf podcast, we're talking with Lee Davis, VP of Marketing at Spectrum Labs. Spectrum Labs provides contextual AI, automation, and services to help consumer brands recognize and respond to toxic behavior. Before joining Spectrum Labs, she was a director of marketing at Gigster and senior director of marketing at Blue Wolf. Lee's expertise spans sales funnel development, new market expansion, lead generation, branding, and product marketing. Let's dive in.
Hey everyone, welcome to Dear BAMf, the podcast for PR and marketing pros such as yourself. We're now fully in season 2, as you guys have been listening here. And today we're so lucky to have Lee Davis here from Spectrum. Hi, Lee.
Hi, Beck. How are you?
Pretty good. We're taping this in the middle of the afternoon on a Monday. You know, I have to say, note to self, do not schedule these on Mondays because a lot of shit's happening on a Monday. But anyway, we're here, Lee, and it's exciting and we got lots of questions to cover. So we're going to get into that. But first, do you want to give us the 60-second soundbite on Spectrum for those who don't know?
Sure. So Spectrum helps consumer brands recognize and respond to toxicity. If you're a consumer brand and you have an online community, like you have a social aspect to your business, chances are you've got people who are nasty to each other on that. And lots of folks attack that problem with people called content moderators. Mm-hmm. And they need more sophisticated tools than what they've had to date. And we offer that. So that's what we're doing at Spectrum Labs.
I would imagine you've become increasingly popular, sadly.
Yeah.
Big market for this.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And is the alternative right now for people just to try in some vacuum of space to moderate by hand and humans, basically? That's the default of what you could do?
A lot of people throw people at the problem. Lots of people. So the big consulting firms will have massive outsourced departments that the big online communities that are household names will work with. And then they're running kind of antiquated software, just picking up for keywords, right? A list of keywords you want to trigger off actions for. But you can also imagine that if you got that list of keywords, they're not as sensitive as you would need them to be, because in certain places, some words are okay. And in certain places, some words are not. So that sort of technology has just been like taking a hammer to something, whereas our technology is AI driven. It learns the nuance of everyone's communities, what's okay and what's not okay. And it helps the moderator go about his or her day in a much better way.
Wow. I'm just looking at the website too. So everything from sexual harassment, cyberbullying, hate speech, and then CSAM, which is child sexual predatoring, right? Abuse material, all that stuff. Wow. And scams, of course, spam. Wow. Wow. Well, seems very relevant right now. Very relevant. So I can appreciate what you guys are solving. What are you most proud of just in accomplishing in this crazy last year we've had, 12 months or so?
Well, I think we're on track, knock on wood, to do 3x growth. Maybe.
Wow.
So for the stage that we're at, I mean, that's just kind of the gold standard of so I'm
absolutely
really excited about that. And I think in the marketing world, finally, we're past our Series A funding and I'm on board before that. So as a marketer, you can't do much with a very limited budget. But now the Series A has given us much more to work with. And I've been able to put in place some of those kind of things that we know and love as marketers that we know make an impact, right? So I've been able to hire a PR agency, hire a demand gen agency, do all this great stuff. And then the leads are coming in and things are doing well.
That's the dream.
Yeah.
Living the dream. The leads are coming in.
I know.
Yes. Is there before we get into the questions, then I also like to ask, is there a favorite way you are doing any storytelling right now?
I think we do storytelling through events, actually.
Events?
Yeah.
Do tell, because no one's going in person for these right now.
Right. So we're lucky. I think we transitioned really quickly to virtual events, and we've had it be amazing for us. We host 2, soon to be 3 types of events.
Mm-hmm.
One is a fireside chat, which we have one host and one guest. And then we talk about a specific thing, a specific behavior that content moderators need to know about. And we just explain what that behavior is. And sometimes the guest is someone that is very well versed in that behavior from a nonprofit space. Take cyberbullying, for instance. We can have one from a cyberbullying nonprofit there to show, just to share, what are the new things kids are doing these days? And so we tell that story in an event, and then we create materials surrounding it. We'll promote the event on LinkedIn. We'll create a blog that summarizes the findings. We'll wrap that up into a larger piece on, let's say, children's safety. And we'll house that. You can find those things in our website. And then the second program that we have is a wine night program, which is more for people that are really close, I think, to considering buying us. So prospects and a couple customers come, and here we solicit what they want to hear or what they want to talk about. And then we group people into Zoom rooms, and then we go off and we just go to town. And we all ship everyone a bottle of wine. And so everyone
wow. This is the first time I've heard someone using the Zoom breakout rooms in a way that's actually biz dev.
Yeah.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. And then per what you want to talk about. So I don't have to listen to somebody else's thing for 27 minutes. It's I want to talk about these 2 topics, and here are my people. Oh, I hope people are taking notes. This is good.
Yeah, we have a lot. Feel free to reach out. Anyone who's interested.
Yes.
We've learned a lot about hosting this particular type of event, when to bring people together into a group, when to break things off, do that. So we've been doing it for a couple months now. So we've got a good solid track record of doing this.
And how many people are showing up for those?
More every day, more every month.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of wine you must be shipping.
I know. It's really ridiculous. But it's actually, the cheapest event I've ever thrown.
I was going to say, though, of all the event marketing and all the event production, a couple bottles, hey.
And you can find, sommeliers right now, they need work, right? And
they do.
Some of them some of them have their own distributors. So you can get a really good deal these days if you go. And then they just do a little wine tasting in the beginning, and then everyone feels posh and happy, and you're off the
posh and happy. And they associate it with you. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, great technique. That's a new one. Haven't heard that one yet. Excellent. Thanks, Lee. That's a good little nugget right there. I'm sure we're going to get a lot more out of here. Okay. Question number 1 here. Here we go. Dear BAMf, I'm the head of comms at a unicorn startup, and I have about 5 seasoned executives I could put forward to media and thought leadership. Earlier this year, we started a LinkedIn campaign for one of these executives, which has gone tremendously well. Thank God, but I also picked well. The executive is super coachable, gives me input, and has been a dream to work with. Now 2 other executives would like to emulate his campaign, but I'm not going to get the budget or resources to do this. Currently, we have an agency that runs the One Thought Leadership campaign. Do I stick with my ace and continue to build his profile, or should I risk switching to a new executive and hope the one I establish takes the torch? Or do I try to split the difference between the 2 other executives?
I
see this often. Yeah. What say you?
Yeah, I like this a lot. I've been thinking about this. So I think there's a lot between the lines here. A few assumptions before I launch into suggestions and all that jazz.
Okay.
Here are my assumptions when I'm thinking about how to answer this question. First, I'm going to assume the goal of this LinkedIn campaign is to land media coverage and ultimately increase share of voice. That the person asking, the head of comms, is pitching to target media. The agency is managing all that guts of LinkedIn, right? The assembling and all that jazz. And then also helping create content. And the last assumption I'm going to make before I launch into my suggestions here is that trying new things and failing is actually okay in this person's environment. Taking risk, it's really important. I think it's probably better to be in an environment where you can. So with those assumptions, here's what I'm thinking. If this person was right in front of me, my probing questions would be, what really actually made that first executive successful? Was it because of the way that you worked together? And do you believe that you can't replicate that with the other executives? What if, and this is just kind of trying to flip the question around, what if these two executives are actually going to be awesome, but they're just going to be
very
awesome
true.
in very different ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a different thing. What if they're even better, right? So,
I love this optimistic view. Yes.
right, like you don't know, like reading between the lines here, I get the sense that maybe this person feels like these other two executives are going to be a little harder to manage, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the goals won't be met. So here's the thought. Why don't you expand to one executive at a time? Don't take two on, just take one. And I think the reason there is that I'm sensing that there's like just resource constraints, right? And introducing two new people, still managing the third, that seems like a lot of shifting.
That seems a lot.
Right? So just scope it down. And then structure that onboarding process for that new executive, taking the best from the first one, and clearly communicate the structure to that new executive. Like, here's what it's going to look and feel like. Here's the amount of input you can have, and I'm ultimately going to call the shots. Like, set up your parameters beforehand, and then establish your KPIs. And the good news is that you've got those benchmarks from the first executive, right? Then decide upon a time frame, right? Let's say like, okay, let's give you, if you're throwing $10,000 at a LinkedIn campaign for a month, you should pretty much know at the end.
Yeah, I would say that's a generous budget.
Whether or not this is going to work, right? And so decide upon the time frame, and then push your agency. I'm guessing that they could probably do more with that bucket of hours you have. My mentors always reminding me that I've got to push my agencies harder. And it's a really good suggestion. And it's something that puts me out of my comfort zone, because generally I like to just get along with my agencies. And I figure you catch more flies with honey, but you really do kind of have to push them. So push your agencies, like see what they can really do. Like, let's say this agency is creating a piece of content to form the bedrock of a pitch and the LinkedIn generation campaign. There's probably many ways that piece of content can be ripped and reused in different things. What if it could just be ripped and repackaged and then like slap a new quote from the new executive, right? Like lower the overhead, I guess, that goes into creating the content for that next executive. Reuse what you have. Pluck the chicken.
Exactly.
My whole
Pluck the chicken.
Reuse content. And then now you're in an awesome position, right? Because if it doesn't work, you've clearly communicated. You have taken a chance. You've taken a risk. You've pushed yourself. You've thought of all the angles. And man, look, the KPIs, it's not going the way we want to go. Let's close up shop. We all agree. This is great. Thank you very much. Let's go back to this one executive and go. And then if it does actually work, amazing. Look at you. You expanded. You clearly made sure that this wasn't what's the word for it, where it's just this kind of surprise thing that only happens once. This is a repeatable process,
You have a process, yeah.
It turns into a program that you can rinse and repeat. Now you're the author of this amazing program and you're in a great position. So either way, I'm trying to get you to a place where through structure and clearly communicating, you win, even if the whole effort doesn't win. And that's why in my assumptions, one of my last assumptions was you're in an environment where taking risks like that and failing is going to be okay.
I love the thought on this because you already have one that is a done deal that you know is successful. So hopefully you've bought yourself some cachet just in running, let's say, trying to see if this is a repeatable process. You're kind of like a scientist now. Was that a fluke, or is this proven to be something that we can replicate and we have a playbook for? And I also don't take the two, so you have three on board, but try it out with another. And then see and analyze the data as soon as possible, by the way. Don't drag it out for half a year, seeing what'll happen. Analyze as quickly as possible when you know you have enough to then decide, yep, rinse and repeat. Once we get it off the ground, then maybe they take it on. And it's kind of now you guys know the drill. You know what you have to do. You know what you have to post. I'm here in the background to help. But by all means, yay, you're running it. It could be something like that with your minimal oversight. Could be.
Exactly.
Amazing. I like that one. Okay. Next question here, Lee. Dear BAMf, I am so sick of hearing about a podcast that we, quote, should do from my CEO. I don't think she understands the time and effort one would take, but my CEO seems pretty keen on doing one, as every legit company has one now. I don't like the thought of being like everyone else, but I also know podcasts can be a powerful medium. Thoughts on how to manage this?
Mm-hmm. I really sympathize with this.
Mm-hmm.
Podcasts are a lot of work.
Yes.
I know.
Here we are on one. Yes.
Right. Yes. I mean, it's just a lot of work to get it up and running, right? And I feel
Took
like
us 5 minutes just to get the mic stuff working, right?
Oh, and then you've got an audio person tweaking things behind
Yes.
the scenes. Like, there's a lot to go in.
Yeah.
And I think the quality bar is really high on podcasts. Like, you look at what Apple Podcasts or whatever your favorite podcasting distributor is and listen to a couple, every one of them has this great quality benchmark here that is tough to reach. But personally, I don't actually like podcasts as much as I like events for lead generation.
Yes, as we just learned from your nugget of wisdom earlier.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
With events, I'm collecting registrations, and those registrations turn into little leads at the end of the day. And with podcasting, at least if you, right off the bat, you're not collecting too much data on your audience, unless you gate your recordings and provide them on demand behind a form. So there's that. But I don't know, there's something, I haven't cracked the nut on podcasts, but your CEO asked you about it, right? And that's actually awesome. Like, let's just shift our perspective a little bit. She's trying to help, really, by throwing you some ideas. And my advice is just to run with it. Just thank her. You don't want to be the one that says no. Well, you always have to be the one that says no when the time calls, right?
Yep, that's right.
You don't want to not answer her. So buy yourself some time to say, let me put together a recommendation. Let me see what I can do. Let me see what's appropriate for us, right? You want to be the consultative person back to the CEO. My guess is that that person isn't coming up from marketing. Maybe they're coming up from the department. They are open to by the sheer fact that she didn't say, do it right now, to your suggestions here. So think about it like that. Go back to your desk, sit down, sketch the program out. What do you want a podcast program to look like? What would be the dynamic? What would be the themes? What would the technology be that you'd need? How would you promote it? Everything. Just really think about it. Make some calls to people that you know, host podcasts, get some input, really like design out a V1 podcast program. And at the same time, present a couple of other ideas that you've been chewing over, right? You know, maybe you have this idea to create a piece of content and you really want to have the help of an outside survey agency. Or maybe you want to do, these different types of events, virtual events. Put that all together. And then put a budget against all of this. And don't forget to include what you think the impact on the pipeline will be for every one of these ideas. If it's not pipe, something else. Like, what is the impact?
Yeah. Is it brand? Is it whatever?
Right. What's this lever? And turn back and present it to your CEO. Present it as a menu of items. Sure. Thank you so much for the idea and the push on the podcasts. Here's what I think a really great podcast program should be. Also, as I was dreaming this up, here are a couple of other things we can use to move the needle on the goals. Here's my recommendation on what we would want to do. So then you're taking a consultative role with your CEO. You're arming her with the information she needs and you need to have a constructive conversation about her suggestion. As you put this together, you might find that your mind changes.
Indeed.
That this is a great thing, right? And you lay it out clear, like, I need an extra this, and that. I'll need to hire this, and that. I'll need to do this, and that. And even if you know that you have no money and it's not going to happen, right? Really lay it out, because that's also going to educate her to understand that these efforts, like, everything costs money, right? It's just effort. And understanding what the budget is for certain amounts of efforts, like, you have to let her know that, so that as you continue to work together, she has much more constructive suggestions for you. That's it.
That's it. I think the biggest thing missing in this one is the goal. what is the goal to what you were just mentioning, Lee? Is it lead gen? Is it SEO? Is it brand? How are we going to know this is successful in any way, shape, or form? Because what we're getting from this question is like, oh, we should. It sounds very much like, well, us too. We're going to do that too because everyone else does it. And it's like, that's a pretty crappy goal. So if it's just vanity, then let's not spend the time and the money and the effort. The other component to this is, which we don't know, but I'm assuming, again, here's an assumption, is the CEO going to be the one doing all these interviews? Who's doing these interviews? Okay, we'll calculate up that time for the CEO. Be like, oh, so CEO, so we're going to do a whole year of programming. So that's going to be about, for my calculations, 80 plus hours of your time to prep, to get on them, to record them. Is that something you want to do? And then see what the response is. Because I think a lot of times people don't know the time. So let's just say your budget is 0, which, okay, that's ridiculous. But then the time, and whose all time is that going to be?
And let's say the budget is 0, right? Like, let's say that's the real constraint here. I mean, your one resource, like, let's just assume right now that you're the one person show. Your one resource, you want to do a podcast, that's your commit. What falls on your plate?
Exactly.
You can't do this thing.
Exactly.
Is this podcast program with a projected, this goal, and here's how I'm going to hit it, is that actually worth ditching some of these other responsibilities on your plate? And you can have a conversation with your CEO about that.
Yes, because it should not be, hopefully not, oh yeah, pile that one on to me now too.
Right.
Something else is going to have to go.
Yeah.
Most likely.
Exactly.
Okay, last question, Lee. Dear BAMf, so 2020 was rough. I'm wondering, is there a hard, fast rule on when you shouldn't be tweeting or when you shouldn't be pitching media, COVID, the election, shootings? These all seem to be sensitive and horrific times, but I'm struggling to know where the line of when business should proceed as normal. Thoughts? This came up in our annual planning with my comms team.
Yeah.
Lee, you are in a perfect position related to this with all the stuff that you guys see.
You're in the thick of it right now. I haven't, in my conversations with folks, I haven't heard a hard and fast rule gaining traction, like never wear white after Labor Day or whatever it is. There's no hard and fast rule.
Yeah, never tweet after September 13th. Yeah, exactly.
Nothing super big that people are like, or super like, detailed that people are adhering to. But here's what I've been doing. So our company sells technology that's about dealing with online toxicity. So by that, just because of the nature of what we do, we have had a reason to tweet and a reason to pitch during these incredible times. And so we didn't kind of stop. We just made sure, like you always would, that your pitches really spoke to the target and had news. There was something new to do, new to say. You're bringing that person something new, something newsworthy. So in the lead up to the elections, I made sure what we pitched to our targets absolutely related to the election. I mean, there was just no one, even someone with like a totally different beat was covering the elections up until like last week.
Oh yeah, unescapable.
Right? Everyone was doing it. So in that, it was pretty obvious. Like if I wasn't in this company, and I really didn't have anything to contribute to this discussion, I probably would have laid low in the run up, right? And just kind of poked around and did my thing. I wouldn't launch anything big or do something like that in the run up. And then starting last Tuesday, we kind of went quiet on LinkedIn and Twitter, and we chilled on pitching because it was so clear that it just wasn't about us, right? Like it's just about what was going on. And there was just nothing needed to be said about technology last week, for sure. We just chilled out. It was so funny. We have this EdCal. We did it every week. We plan out everything. And then there was just like big week of blank rows. And we just didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Not like the right decision for us because it just wasn't good. And then for COVID stuff, we do have news when it comes to stuff like that because there's e-marketplaces with people selling fake cures. And how do you identify?
Oh my God. Yeah.
How do you identify fake listings? And how do you catch spam on marketplaces that are directing to fake listings? So there was a lot of stuff to be said, again, with COVID over the past year. And then when these shootings happen, we lay low and we talk about, like when the Christchurch shooting happened, we didn't say anything. There was nothing to talk about there. Like there were a lot of people that needed to talk and we weren't one of them. When we were further removed from the event and when it became like just general knowledge that when this incident was broadcast and it went viral across the globe, it exposed that moderation technologies weren't up to snuff. And we had a legitimate reason to talk about that. And so we entered the conversation again. So that's what we've been doing. I think just knowing what our targets are covering, making sure our pitches tailor to what their beat is, making sure we have news, laying low when we don't, laying low. No, it's just more important for other people to talk and just to listen.
Yeah, it sounds like it is very case by case.
Yeah.
What we've done and what a good litmus test or a little like finger to the wind test is do a scroll on Twitter and see what journalists are saying. There's a lot of them out there that'll say, if I see another pitch, you will be roasted. So there's discussion. There's clear signs that float on the internet that indicate, yeah, I am not open for business today. This is just not the time. I don't want to hear your release. I don't want to do that. So that's a little litmus test. If in doubt, go to Twitter and kind of suss out and see what you're noting is a good rule of thumb. Because we're all humans. We're all just trying to do what we got to do. But it is increasingly difficult to suss out, well, when is versus when not the time to say anything. And that line gets particularly thin when you're a company, you're a startup that is in that space and definitely does have something to contribute to the conversation. Even when that's the case, it's like, well, should you though? I would look at Twitter just to kind of get a pulse on things, just to see. But what a year, indeed. So there's that. For context, I know this is debuting a little bit later in post 2020, but we're in the midst of the election just happened. We're still in COVID, all this stuff. So nothing probably has changed since whenever you guys are all hearing this, but that's where we're at right now. But yeah, my answer is, yeah, it depends. Go to Twitter to touch base if you need to. Sounds like you guys have navigated it very case by case as well.
Yeah. I'm constantly in touch with my social media team over at my PR agency. We review weekly what we're going to say. Most of our stuff right now is just content curation with a little bit of homegrown stuff. We just make it a habit just to say, you know, what's going on in the world? Are these the right articles? Should we be listening or talking? A little bit of both, and make the call.
So it's constant checking. You doing that daily?
We do, let's say Thursday, Friday for the week ahead. And then every day the agency actually pastes in Slack. They'll just remind me, here's what's going on today. Here's what's going on. Every single day in the morning, I get a little heads up.
A little ping. Good. Well, Lee, thank you for being on today. We've solved what we can for today. Of course, there's always more problems in this crazy role and crazy world that we are in. But thank you so much. I thought that's so fun. Great answers too.
Yeah, thank you. This is great.
Thanks for listening to Dear BAMf, the advice podcast for PR and marketing pros like you. Our show was created by BAM, a PR and marketing agency headquartered in San Diego and New York City. The music you're enjoying today was composed by Tiffany Dizon, produced by Daniel Kessner, and played by San Diego Symphony's Art of Milan. If you have a tough PR and marketing question you'd like us to answer, write to us at bamtheagency.com/Dear BAMf. Don't forget the F. If you'd like to get notified of our latest episodes, subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts and review us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.